All right. And so this is day 5 of the 7-day Queen Cleanse. And if you've been tracking it all along, yesterday we talked about reprogramming for your wellness. And so if you have gotten to the point on this cleanse where you're feeling great, your thought processes are a little bit different, you're understanding how to cleanse a whole lot better, and you just feel so much greater, now it's time for you to start thinking about how you're going to transition back onto regular food. And so what I'm going to be sharing with you today is one of several staple recipes that I not only use to transition into veganism, but something that I use when I'm coming off of a cleanse. And so every single piece of this recipe is intentional. So today I actually have a family get together that I'm going to a little bit later on. And I am going to take this particular dish to that recipe, to that get together, that recipe. Now, if you love this dish, I'm going to make sure that you get the recipe and that you have access to several other recipes in the Royal Reset Recipes deck. Because when you're starting out on a wellness journey, you want to make sure that you are transitioning off of the cleanse properly, and that as you introduce foods back in, you're watching and you're paying attention to how your body is going to respond to those different recipes. All right, so first things first, we have some fresh greens. So I'm going to do organic greens today, and these are going to be raw greens. We are not going to cook these greens, but these are going to be a staple dish that you can use no matter what. So we're going to use raw greens. I'm going to use turnips and collards, and I'm going to do a mix of those. You can also mix kale, you can mix spinach, but you have to pay attention to how the greens react and work together. Some greens, like spinach, is a lot thinner than collards, so you got to pay attention to that, because as the stuff that we put into this recipe, as over time, as the recipe sits, whether it's in the fridge or anywhere else, the recipe will start to allow the greens to soften and tenderize as if you had already cooked them. Now, the reason why you want to pay attention to what you're putting in here is because if you keep greens raw, greens in and of themselves, one leaf of a green has several thousand nutrients in it. And so you want to make sure, if you can get your greens raw, that you make sure that as you get those raw, you make sure that you keep them that way. Hey, Ronnie, thanks for joining me. Be sure to share this out so that other people can get it. Okay, so we're going to put some olive oil in this recipe. We've got some pink Himalayan crushed salt with the grinder on the top. We have my favorite of several spices, which is paprika. And I'm also going to use this that I found at the store. It is an organic mix of sambals, so it is really, really spicy. In many cases, I will actually use seeds and nuts like chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, chickpeas. And in this packet, if you'll see, I'm going to try to hold this up, it has all of those things in it. And so it will allow you to give your salad some crunch. It'll allow you to give it some kick. And another thing that I'm going to add to this, because since I'm using collards and since I'm using turnips, they can be a little bit bitter. When they're raw, they can be very, very bitter, especially if you're leaving the stems on them, which is not okay fashionably, but overall, it's okay if you want to leave the stems on your greens. It's totally up to you. But it does lend to more of a more bitter tasting recipe. You can cut the bitterness with something sweet. So you can do a natural sweet like a natural sweetener like agave nectar. You can use maple syrup. You can use a lot of different things. I'm actually going to use some organic dried cranberries to help sweeten this recipe a little bit and cut some of that bitterness out of the greens. So first thing first, we're going to add, because I have everything over here, we're going to add the collards that I had first, okay? So we're going to add those in. And I actually made this yesterday, and it was so freaking yummy. So I'm going to finish up this bag of chopped collards, right? I'm going to finish up that bag. And then since this is going to be for a large group of people, I like to mix these greens. And so like I was saying, you can either take the stems off or you can leave the stems on. I'm going to opt to leave them on for this particular recipe because by the time we get to where we're going, it's actually going to tenderize quite a bit, because where we're going is probably about an hour, hour and a half away. And then I'm going to take and add some turnip greens because I like turnips. And so I like to mix greens. Like I said, you can mix kale and collards. You can mix whatever you want. Now, what you want to do is, this is a massaged recipe. So you want to get in the habit of using your hands to make sure that your food is on point, okay? And so this is a massage greens recipe. We're going to be massaging the oil and the salt and any other spices you want into this recipe. The only other thing that I'm missing that I absolutely love is nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast actually gives your recipe a nice kind of cheesy, nice holistic kind of flavor, and it's very, very good for your body. And so I typically use nutritional yeast when I'm massaging greens. So I'm doing a mix, and I'm gonna add, you're gonna see me massage these down, and then you're gonna see me add more, because as you massage the greens with the oil and just the salt, that in and of itself is a staple recipe. You can add a little bit of vinegar to it if you want. You can add a little bit of pepper to it if you want. You can add more spices like paprika, cumin, jalapenos. You can pretty much, from that staple recipe with just the greens, the olive oil, and the salt, you can pretty much add whatever you want at that point. But I actually like to use just the staple ingredients first, and then I like to add things for seasoning, for flavor, and for different things. Now, remember, every single thing that you add to a green is going to start to change that green. And so think about when someone overcooks a green. It just goes flaccid, and it doesn't have really any more nutrients and any more flavor to it. You don't want to do that. And one of the ways you beat that is you actually use raw greens. That's one of the best ways to actually beat that all together and not be concerned about whether your nutrients are gone. And then what you put on the greens should give you something back. So the pink salt should remineralize your body. The olive oil should help bathe your joints, especially in the wintertime. It's a nice, healthy fat. You can also massage avocado on these greens as another healthy fat. As the seasons get a little bit cooler, you can still have raw dishes, but you want to make sure that those raw dishes, as you create them, that they're actually, every single ingredient should give you something back. And you should be able to pinpoint this, not just when you're coming off of a cleanse, but you should be able to pinpoint this on a daily basis. So if you're looking at your plate and you can't tell what's on your plate and how it's going to affect your body long term, then you want to think twice about actually eating it. And that's what's going to help you get to the reset that you're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of oil. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some salt in here. And you just want to get enough salt in here to actually start the massaging process. That's all you want to do. You want to get enough in here to start massaging, okay? And so you're just going to see me massage. Now, you'll probably eventually see me reach over and get some more greens, because as you massage, your greens are just going to go down, right? They're gonna start to look as if you've already cooked them, okay? And I'll share with you and show them to you guys in just a minute. You want to make sure that you are coating the greens with everything, okay? So coating it with the salt, coating it with the oil, right? And so these greens have significantly dropped, right? So the bowl was full. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest. And don't be shy when you're actually making your food. I actually use my hands to make my food like this. Like I try not to use a lot of spoons and other stuff if it's not necessary, right? So I'm going to use all of this, because if I show up to this get together without enough of this salad, people going to be like, you didn't bring enough. And this is actually a dish that, believe it or not, this is actually a dish that even the children eat. They never have an issue with eating this particular type of salad. I usually do this with kale. This time I'm doing it with collards. I tried it with collards yesterday, and then today I'm adding turnips to it. So the only other thing I'm going to start to add at this point is the paprika, because I love paprika. I usually do cumin, I'll do turmeric, I'll do whatever. If you want this salad to be savory, you can make it savory, you can make it spicy, you can make it sweet, but you want to make sure that whatever you're putting in here, it's going to give you something back. When you're talking about using spices, especially in the wintertime, spices actually help the joints and help with inflammation as well. So like I said, every single ingredient that you put in here should be giving you something back. And now you're just going to see me really dig in. All right, just for the sake of time, okay? right? Really massage that in. At this point, you can add whatever else you want to season it, okay? At this point, you want to make sure you add whatever else you want. So what if you like cumin, add cumin. If you like coriander, add coriander. The spices, the oil, and the salt are the basic recipe. And then at that point, you decide, what do you want this to be? Do you want this to be sweet? If you want it to be sweet, add a little bit of maple syrup, add some dried fruit, add some dried nuts, add some seeds, add some different things. And you can keep this raw if you want. Anything that's been dried has not necessarily been cooked. It should be, it should have been dried at a temperature of, I think it's 175 or less if you're looking at foods that are dried. And that way they're still keeping their nutrient density and they're actually still keeping their raw state. So I've done raw veganism. I did it for about 90 days, probably about a year ago. And for me, it was just much more satisfying for me to have some food that was warm. And I started going raw like in the winter months, which is not the ideal time to go raw. Now, don't get me wrong. There's people that live on raw diets year round. And so you can still live on an amazing raw diet, and raw diets actually give you a lot more energy. So, but anytime I get an opportunity to, I try to go ahead and make sure that I keep certain dishes raw. And my salads are one of those things. Even if it's any kind of green, I don't really cook greens. I usually keep them in their raw state because they're already, in some cases, depending on where you get them, they're already nutrient depleted. And so you just want to massage this down. It's gonna get a little messy, but you want to massage it down with the salt, the crushed sea salt, with the olive oil. And remember, depending on the oil that you use, some oils actually have certain types of aromas. And so you want to be careful with that. I use an olive oil, and olive oil tends to work better for me on greens. You can also use an avocado oil. You can use a grapeseed oil. You can use any type of oil you want. You can also use essential oils if you want to flavor these dishes and certain things. Okay, so now that we have our base, all right, get all this, try to get all this off my hands. Now that we have our base, we're going to add the nuts and seeds and things like that. And so, like I said, I have my absolute favorite. Now you can get these things separately. You can actually buy these things separately. I actually have a sink right here, which is good. You can actually buy these pieces separately, but I like this because it has the spice to it, and it has the chickpeas, the pumpkin seeds, the chia seeds. It pretty much has everything in it. These are salad starters. They're organic. Just make sure you get them organic, and you don't get them with certain things in them. Some of this stuff actually is not raw. Some of it has been either dry, either not dehydrated, but it has been like cooked or something like that. But it shouldn't have any animal products in it, and it actually should still be pretty good and good enough for you to work with. Now, I love this because even though it comes in this bigger kind of pack, it's separated already into these packs. So when I'm making like just a single salad for just like me and my mom and my son, we usually can take a couple packs of these, and that's enough. That's what I'm going to actually put in this particular recipe. So I have 2 packs of this sambals, and this has chia seeds in it, chickpeas, chili flakes, all those different things. It has cumin, coriander, so I don't have to add those things in separate. The only other thing I like to add separately are jalapenos because we just like some spice around here. And spices are just really, really good for your joints, and they're good this time of year. The only other thing I'm going to add, like I said, because we're using collards and we're using turnips, I am going to add some dried cranberry to make sure that something sweet cuts that bitterness. Now, if I feel like the dried cranberries aren't enough, or I feel like the dried cranberries, I still need a little bit more sweetness, then I'll go to the fridge and maybe add a half a tablespoon, yes, to a big bowl, only about a half a tablespoon of either agave nectar or maple syrup, real maple syrup, not the pancake stuff, but the real maple syrup. But I'm gonna add some cranberries to sweeten this up. And don't be shy, add them in there. Like I said, I'm taking this one actually with me when I leave the house today. But when you're transitioning off of these, off of a cleanse, you want to make sure that you can pinpoint where everything is going. And you want to make sure that you're not adding. So when you come off of a cleanse, you shouldn't be having a plate with meat and all this other stuff on it. You just had 7 days. If you've been on a smoothie cleanse, and even if you're on a 7-day queen cleanse, you just had 7 days of no soy, gluten, dairy, wheat, corn, or meat. You just did the ultimate elimination diet. And so the last thing you want to do is go back onto all of that regular food and not catch the things that don't work for you. The way that you do that is you pay attention to what you're eating when you're coming off of the cleanse. Now, the way you pay attention is you get staple recipes that you're like, okay, this is a staple recipe. I know everything that's in it, and I know what this recipe is going to give me back. Now, if for some reason I get sick on this recipe, I don't have 50 million ingredients to try to figure out what didn't work for me. I can go right back to the few things that I put into that staple recipe and then begin to say, one of these things does not belong. One of these things does not make me feel good. And so that's what it's about. You don't want to eat a full plate of food after you've gone on a cleanse. You don't want to eat a full plate of food even after you've done a series of colonics, because whatever is in your diet that's keeping you, whether it's overweight, whether it's keeping your energy low, whether it's keeping you, in many cases, sometimes even emotionally unstable, you don't want to add all those things back to your plate at one time. You want to add those back over time. And you will quickly be able to see which one of these things does not help you, which one of these things does not make you feel good. But most people can never get to this point because they don't go off of food long enough. And if you're not on the 7-day queen cleanse, oh my God, what are you waiting on? You should have been on the cleanse. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix these in. And then our salad is ready. Our salad is ready. The only thing I want to caution you with is when you add a whole lot of spice, like I add a whole lot of spice. I'll add jalapenos, chili flakes. I'll add a whole lot of spice. And when you add a whole lot of spice, as you're mixing this stuff together, your hands are gonna start to burn. So that's the only thing I want to caution you with, right? So if you're super sensitive or you got sensitive skin, and because this needs to be massaged, and it needs to be massaged well, and then we're gonna refrigerate it when it's done. But as this is being massaged, the spices are gonna make your hands tingle a little bit. So most people use a spoon, but a spoon is not gonna allow you to actually get the salt into the greens to make them tender. All right. Some other things you can use if you have allergies to salt or other things. Some other things you can use are vinegar. Some people like ACV. I'm not a super huge fan of ACV because it's a little bit controversial. Some people actually also like the liquid aminos. It's like a soy sauce, but it's an amino acid, and those can work really, really well. But I find that liquid aminos are really, really salty, and I can't seem to, want to actually use them. It's hard to gauge the salt. I can gauge it a lot better with some of the other stuff. So that's pretty much our salad. It is a massage salad. Right? It is a massage salad, and it is absolutely yummy. And so, like I said, this one is going to go with me to a get together. This is one of the staple ones that I always bring. I always do the greens, right? I always do the greens, and I always bring some kind of salad with me. And it's always an interesting salad. So one day they might get spicy, one day they might get sweet, one day they might get smoky, savory. So as long as you have the staple pieces, you should be good to go. Now, with that being said, you want to start thinking about how you're going to reset all of your life, right? Food is just a piece of your wellness. I actually, before I did this, I actually finished up one of the modules for the Royal Reset. And one of the things that I discussed was how our mindset and even our vibrational energy projects how we look and feel. And a lot of times we get into a programmed way of thinking. For instance, most people like their greens cooked. Most people will probably not try raw collards. And unfortunately, it's sad because it does them a disservice, because it actually does taste better than cooked collards. You actually are able to get all of the amazing flavors and stuff onto these collards and out of the vegetable itself without overdoing it. And you actually begin to see how the greens can actually affect your wellness long term. And so that's pretty much the staple recipe. In the Royal Reset that we're doing, I'm excited because I get to do this annual wellness review with some amazing women, and I'm opening it up for women to be a part of it. And so in that annual review, we get the opportunity to look over everything that has affected our lives and that has affected our wellness. I've done this annual review every single year for the past 5 years. And I now am calling it the Royal Reset, and there's some amazing people that are going to actually join me, and I'm excited for them. What I created was a jumpstart course for your reset. And that jumpstart course allows you to look at how you've programmed yourself to think about wellness. It also allows you to think about the different habits and belief patterns that you have around the food that you eat and around the way that you think about food and the way that you think about life and wellness and health and fitness in general, right? And so I invite you to be a part of the Royal Reset. In that Royal Reset, there is actually several other staple recipes just like this one that allow you to cleanse every quarter and be able to eliminate things out of your diet that no longer work for you. And at the same time, it allows you to eliminate things in other spaces and parts of your life that most people never even think of or do a review about. And so it is literally that all-encompassing holistic reset that a lot of people need. And most people are going to jump probably into another challenge, or they may even continue their cleanse. But the reality of it is our vibrational energy and the way we look at energy and the way that we carry ourselves is projected onto the body and the things that people see when they look at us. And so it makes sense for us to do a review every year with every single thing that's going on with you and see how you can reset from a standpoint that feels good to you long term. So with that being said, I will see you for day 6, which is tomorrow. If you've been missing any of these, all of them are right in the Royal Wellness Academy, all of the different videos from days 1 all the way up to day 7. And then if you're interested in the Royal Reset, be sure to make sure you connect with me to be able to get information about it. Have a great day. Bye. I'm going to get cleaned up, y'all. Okay, so the reason I wasn't engaging on Facebook, y'all, is because I'm actually recording this for my thing. So that's why I kind of look like a talking head and I wasn't looking at the screen. But with that being said, I'm going